"Let him go," she said quietly, her voice still cold. Cole lowered his weapon. "We have bigger problems." The two of them turned back to the stone structure. The device was almost within reach. But just as they approached, the ground shook again, even harder this time. A loud sound echoed through the chamber. Something was awakening beneath them. "It's starting," Viral whispered, her voice tense. "We need to hurry." Cole didn't need any more urging. They sprinted forward, ready for whatever lay ahead. The ground continued to shake, and the air hummed with power. The stone structure in front of Cole and Varel glowed brighter as they moved closer. They could feel the energy pulsing from within. The device was near, hidden deep in the ancient stone. Cole wiped the sweat from his forehead. "We need to hurry," he muttered, his voice tense. He glanced at Varel, who was focused, eyes narrowed, her hand still hovering near her weapon. Varel stepped forward, her silver skin glowing faintly in the chamber's light. She could sense the energy in the air, feel the ancient technology stirring. "It's too dangerous," she said, her voice low. "We need to disable it, not activate it." "Agreed," Cole replied. He moved cautiously, watching for any more traps or mercenaries. The battle with the mercenaries had been fast, but there was still the risk that others might be nearby. As they reached the center of the chamber, the stone wall before them began to shift. A large platform rose from the floor, covered in alien symbols that flickered to life. "It's a lock," Viral said, crouching down to inspect it. "A very old one." Cole knelt beside her. "How do we open it?" Viral hesitated, her fingers brushing over the strange symbols. "I can try, but it may take some time. The lock is designed to reject anyone who isn't from this world." As she worked, Cole kept an eye on their surroundings, his senses heightened. He could still hear the faint sound of the mercenaries' footsteps echoing through the halls. But nothing came. They were alone. For now. Viral's hand hovered over the symbols, tracing the edges of each one. She muttered something in her native tongue. "It's complicated, but it's working." The symbols shifted, one by one, in a slow, mesmerizing rhythm. Suddenly, she paused. Her eyes narrowed. "Something's wrong." Cole stood up quickly. "What is it?" Viral stepped back, her body tense. "There's another signal. A transmission." Cole's heart skipped a beat. "From who?" Before she could answer, a faint voice echoed through the chamber, coming from the small device on her wrist. It was soft at first, then grew louder, more insistent. "Viral, this is command. Stop what you're doing. You are to leave the device and return immediately." Viral's eyes widened. She stumbled back from the lock, staring at the small communicator. "No, it can't be." Cole's eyes locked onto her, his hand instinctively reaching for his weapon. "What's going on, Viral? Who are you really working for?" Viral's voice was tight, barely a whisper. I was sent to recover the device. My people needed to maintain control over the galaxy." Cole's eyes narrowed. "But you're not just here to recover it, are you?" Viral shook her head slowly. "No, my orders were clear. I was supposed to deliver the device to them, no matter the cost. I was supposed to ensure that the humans never got their hands on it." Cole felt his chest tighten. "So you were planning to betray me?" Her expression softened slightly. "I didn't want to. I wanted to stop the device from being used, but I was ordered to bring it back. My people, they're afraid. They'll do anything to control the power." Cole stepped forward, his voice firm. "You can still make the right choice. You don't have to do this." Viral turned her head away, her expression conflicted. "It's too late now, Cole. I've already disobeyed orders. I'm already a traitor." Cole reached out, placing a hand gently on her arm. "No, you're not a traitor. You're choosing the right side. This thing, it's too powerful. It's too dangerous. We can't let anyone control it." For a moment, she stayed still, staring at the ground. Then, with a slow, deliberate movement, she looked up at him. "You're right." Her voice was steady now. "I can't let them have it." Cole gave a small nod, a sense of relief flooding him. But it was short-lived. The voice on the communicator grew louder, more insistent. "Virel, this is an order. You will comply or face consequences." Virel gritted her teeth. "I'm not going back." Cole turned toward the stone platform. The symbols on the surface were now glowing brightly, almost pulsing with energy. "We need to act fast. Once we disable this, we'll be free of both the mercenaries and your people. No one else can have this device." Virel moved to the platform, kneeling beside him. Together, they worked quickly, trying to break the ancient code. Each symbol they touched caused the chamber to shake harder, as if the device itself was aware of their efforts to shut it down. "Stay focused," Cole said, his voice firm. The symbols began to slow. The hum of energy in the room grew softer. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from behind them. They spun around, weapons ready, but it was too late. A figure emerged from the shadows. The mercenary leader. "You think you can stop this?" The leader sneered, aiming his weapon at them. "This device belongs to us." Virel was already moving, her blade igniting with a hum of energy. "Not today," she said, her voice cold. Cole raised his gun, firing at the mercenary. The blast hit the leader in the chest, knocking him back. But it was clear that the fight wasn't over. More mercenaries were closing in, and the clock was ticking. "We have to finish this," Cole said urgently, turning back to the platform. Virel nodded. Together, they put everything they had into cracking the final code. The symbols began to flicker, and the humming noise of the device intensified. It was now or never. The last symbol flickered brightly, and then disappeared into the stone surface. The hum in the chamber suddenly stopped. For a moment, everything was eerily quiet. Cole and Virel exchanged a brief glance before turning back to the now unlocked vault. "It's done," Cole said, his voice low, yet filled with relief. "We've stopped it." Virel took a step closer to the vault, her eyes fixed on the now open passage. "For now. But the device is still here. We can't be sure it won't activate itself if we don't do something about it." "I'm with you," Cole replied, his tone unwavering. "Whatever it takes." The vault door creaked open, revealing a dark, deep tunnel. The air felt colder, thicker, as if the room itself was holding its breath. Virel was the first to step forward, her boots echoing as she moved deeper into the chamber. Cole followed, trying to ignore the tightness in his chest. The gravity of what they were about to face settled in, but he couldn't afford to think about that now. The doomsday device lay ahead. The tunnel spiraled downward, growing colder and darker with each step. The only sound was their footsteps and the faint, rhythmic thumping of Cole's heartbeat. His hand gripped his pulse rifle tighter. Ahead, a flicker of light appeared. The tunnel opened up into another cavern. This one was vast, far larger than anything they had encountered so far. The walls were covered in strange, alien markings, and in the center of the room stood a pedestal, glowing with a soft, greenish light. And on that pedestal, the doomsday device rested. It was unlike anything Cole had ever seen, an intricate alien structure, with twisting metal and glowing symbols running along its surface. It hummed softly, as if alive, and the air around it crackled with an ominous energy. Virel stepped forward, her eyes locked on the device. "It's even more powerful than I thought," she whispered. "We have to destroy it now, or it could cause chaos beyond anything we can imagine." Cole nodded. "How do we stop it?" Virel moved closer to the pedestal, examining the device carefully. "There are safety mechanisms in place, but they can only be disabled by an ancient key. Unfortunately, we don't have it." Cole took a deep breath. "So, what's our next move?" Virel looked at him, her eyes filled with resolve. "We need to disarm it manually, but it will require both of us. The key, in a sense, is our combined strength, our combined knowledge of both human and alien technology." Cole's mind raced. He wasn't sure how they were going to do this, but one thing was certain: they didn't have much time. As they approached the device, the ground beneath their feet trembled again. The walls seemed to pulse, and a deep rumbling filled the chamber. "It's activating," Viral said, her voice urgent. "We don't have long." Cole glanced at her, his expression hardening. "Then let's do this." Together, they reached the pedestal. Viral's hands glided over the surface of the device, her fingers tracing the alien symbols. She muttered something under her breath. Words Cole. The space around Xerilus Prime shimmered like gold dust floating in black water. Orbiting this twin star system was a massive structure, a royal palace so large it could be seen from space. Its walls were silver and smooth, curved like petals of a flower. Inside lived the ruler of the Galactic core, one of the most powerful leaders in the known galaxy. And someone had just sent a human to kill them. Cade moved through the air vents of the upper tower. His suit, black and silent, blended with the shadows. His breathing was slow and calm, like it always was before a kill. He wasn't new to this. Earth-trained, war-tested, and enhanced with neural implants, Cade had ended more targets than he cared to count. But this mission felt different. He wasn't sure why. Maybe it was the silence. Maybe it was the way the palace glowed softly, as if trying to hide something behind its beauty. Or maybe it was the warning he got before leaving Earth. If you see her, don't engage. Just run. At first, Cade laughed it off. One woman. He'd handled armed guards, elite squads, even robotic defense units. No bodyguard could scare him. But now, crawling through this royal tomb of luxury and secrets, the warning echoed in his mind louder than ever. He reached the ventilation panel and gently slid it aside. Below him was the throne chamber. It was nearly empty, quiet except for a low hum in the walls. No ruler, no court, just a long path leading to a wide, open seat made of stone and silver. And her. She stood there like a statue come to life. The first thing Cade noticed wasn't her weapon. It was her stillness. She didn't fidget. She didn't shift her weight. She simply stood, tall and motionless, like a shadow that had grown solid. Her skin was pale blue with a faint silver tint under the lights. Her eyes were sharp, glowing slightly, watching everything. She was dressed in something between armor and robes. It moved when she moved, yet didn't make a sound. A long blade rested across her back, and short daggers sat on her hips. She didn't look nervous. She looked ready. Cade checked his pulse, still calm. He pulled out a small black sphere and dropped it down into the chamber. The moment it touched the floor, she moved. Not ran, not rushed. Moved. 1 second she was standing. The next she was under the vent, her hand pressed against the wall. Cade barely rolled away in time before the vent exploded, the force throwing him onto the balcony just below. He groaned but landed in a crouch. Before he could aim his weapon, she was already there, eyes locked, blade drawn. "Human," she said quietly. Her voice wasn't loud, but it filled the air like thunder. "You're late." Cade raised his gun, fired. She deflected the bolt with her blade. Again. Again. The third shot nearly hit her, but instead of stepping back, she dashed forward. Cade rolled to the side and kicked up his energy blade, activating it in a flash. The two clashed, metal and energy lighting the chamber in sharp sparks. She didn't just fight with skill. She fought with purpose. Every swing forced Cade to move. Every block was smooth, not rushed. He was trained. Fast. Smart. But she was different. Not stronger. Not faster. But focused. As if every step was part of a plan. Like she had practiced this moment over and over. Cade ducked under her blade and kicked her legs, sending her stumbling. He took the chance to leap backward and grab a smoke charge. With a hiss, the room filled with gray clouds, and Cade vanished into the fog. He didn't run because he was afraid. He ran because he realized something. This wasn't just a bodyguard. This was a guardian. And the way she fought, it wasn't just about protecting the ruler. It was about protecting something deeper. He escaped into a lower hallway and locked the door behind him. His heart was racing now, not from fear, but curiosity. Who was she? Why did she expect him? And most of all, what was she guarding that was worth so much danger? Cade checked his gear and sat against the wall, breathing hard. The mission was still on, but now he needed a new plan, because if she was going to stop him, he needed to understand her first. Cade moved carefully through the quiet corridor. The royal palace was bigger than any building he had ever seen. The walls seemed to breathe with soft light, and the ceilings were so high they disappeared into darkness. Every step echoed, even though he wore silent boots. He stopped beside a smooth wall panel and opened his hidden map. His implant showed the safest routes, but now, after what just happened in the throne chamber, he knew nothing was safe anymore. He thought it would be a simple job. Get in, find the target, pull the trigger, and vanish. But Soraya, he had heard her name whispered in old mission files, changed everything. She wasn't just a warrior. She was something else. Cade had never seen moves like that. She blocked plasma bolts with her blade, moved like wind, and looked into his eyes as if she already knew him. And she expected him. Cade shook his head. What am I walking into? He needed answers, not just to complete his mission, but to survive. He sneaked into a small control room, probably used by engineers. The lights were dim, and screens showed systems across the palace. Cade quickly plugged a data spike into one of the terminals. His implant began reading the files. As the data flowed, his eyes widened. Soraya's name came up again, this time with a title, Guardian of the Core Throne. Not a bodyguard, not a soldier, a guardian. There was more. She had been born on a planet called Varelia, home to a peaceful race known for their long lives and powerful minds. Her people were known as the Silent Blades because they never spoke unless it was needed. And when they did, people listened. Cade played a short recording. A voice, calm and clear, filled the room. Soraya was chosen not for her strength, but for her balance. She guards not the man on the throne, but the truth behind it. That stopped Cade. The truth behind the throne. What truth? His mission had always been to eliminate the ruler because Earth's spies believed he was preparing for war against humanity. But now he wasn't so sure. Why would someone like Soraya protect a lie? Cade moved again, this time slower. He no longer cared about the throne. He wanted to understand why she was guarding it. As he moved through a long glass bridge, he paused. Below, a massive garden spread out under artificial starlight. Green trees, silver flowers, and calm pools of water filled the area. And in the middle of it, Soraya stood alone. She was not in armor this time. She wore a simple flowing robe, dark blue with silver lines. Her hair was tied back, and in her hands she held a strange string instrument. Soft music floated up, beautiful and sad. Cade watched from behind a statue. She didn't seem like a killer now. She looked like someone who had lost something long ago. He expected to feel anger or fear, but instead he felt confused. How could a person so deadly seem so human? Suddenly, the bushes near Soraya moved. A flash of metal. Two armed aliens jumped from the shadows, blades aimed at her back. Cade's instincts took over. He dropped from the bridge, landing with a heavy thud between her and the attackers. His energy blade lit up in his hand. The first attacker rushed him. Cade blocked the strike and kicked the alien back. The second came from the side. Before Cade could react, Soraya spun forward and knocked the attacker down with a sharp twist of her wrist. Her robe moved like water, and in one fast move, she had both attackers on the ground. They didn't get back up. Cade stood beside her, breathing hard. "You're welcome," he muttered. She didn't answer at first. Her eyes studied him like before, not with hate, but curiosity. "You could have escaped," she said finally. "I could have," Cade replied. But I didn't. Why? He paused. Because I needed to know why someone like you protects a ruler like him. She turned away, walking back to her instrument. It is not him I protect. Cade blinked. Then what? She looked up at the stars. Something older. Something hidden. Before he could ask more, alarms rang in the distance. More guards were coming. Soraya turned to him and said softly, "Meet me in the East Wing tunnel. Midnight." Then she vanished into the trees. Cade stood there, heart still pounding. He had just saved the person meant to kill him, and she had let him live again. Everything was changing. The mission was falling apart, but for the first time, Cade didn't care. He didn't come here just to complete a job now. He came to learn the truth. The moonlight was soft, casting long shadows across the quiet halls of the palace. Cade's boots barely made a sound as he moved through the labyrinth of corridors. His mind was racing, trying to process everything that had happened since he first encountered Soraya. She was no ordinary guardian. She was more than that, much more. The more Cade thought about it, the less the mission made sense. His orders were clear: eliminate the Galactic ruler before he could carry out plans for war. But Soraya's words had shaken him. She had said she wasn't guarding the ruler, but something older, something hidden. But what could it be? What truth was worth this kind of protection? Why was Soraya willing to fight and die for it? Cade had been trained for many things, but this was different. He wasn't just fighting for survival anymore. He was fighting to uncover a mystery that seemed bigger than anything he'd been prepared for. He reached the East Wing tunnel, exactly where Soraya had told him to meet her. It was a dark passage, with only the faint glow of distant lights from the palace to guide him. The air smelled faintly of metal and moisture. Cade leaned against the wall, checking his weapon and his suit's power levels. As much as he wanted answers, he knew this wasn't a safe place to let his guard down. The palace was still crawling with guards, and he had no idea if Soraya would show up alone. Moments later, the sound of soft footsteps echoed down the hall. Cade straightened, ready to react, but when he saw her, he froze. Soraya stepped out of the shadows, her face calm and unreadable. She was no longer wearing the elaborate armor from earlier. Instead, she wore a simple dark cloak that flowed around her, almost blending with the shadows. Her eyes were dark, but there was something different about her tonight. Something softer. She didn't say a word at first, just walked towards him with a quiet grace. When she stopped a few feet away, her eyes met his. Intense, yet distant. "You came," she said softly. Cade nodded, though his mind was still spinning with questions. "I came, but I'm still not sure why." She smiled faintly. "I didn't expect you to understand yet." Cade raised an eyebrow. "I don't. So tell me, what is it you're really guarding?" Soraya hesitated for a moment, then sighed. "The truth behind the throne is not what it seems." "Then what is it?" Cade pressed. She took a step closer, her voice lowering. "The Galactic ruler is not what everyone believes. He is not the true power. The council behind him is, and they've been manipulating the galaxy for centuries." Cade's pulse quickened. "What do you mean? How?" "There are things hidden in the archives of this palace," Soraya continued, her voice now sharp with urgency. "Things that the council doesn't want anyone to find. The ruler, he's just a figurehead. The true control belongs to an ancient race, long forgotten by most. A race that has been influencing the course of galactic events from the shadows." Cade's mind raced as he processed this. "So you're telling me the ruler is just a puppet? That everything I was sent here to stop was just a show?" Soraya nodded, her eyes hardening. "Yes, the council has been planning an invasion for years, but not the kind that you think." Cade didn't understand. "What do you mean?" "The invasion is not against Earth," she explained. "It's something far more dangerous." Before Cade could ask more, Soraya turned, glancing toward the hallway. A faint sound. Footsteps, echoed in the distance. Her body tensed, and she looked at Cade. "We don't have much time," she whispered. "They're coming." The sound of guards' boots grew louder, and Cade knew they couldn't stay here much longer. He had to make a choice. Did he trust Soraya? Could he work with her, even if it meant going against everything he'd been trained for? "You're not alone in this," Cade said suddenly, his voice steady. "If you're right, if there's a bigger threat than the ruler, then I'm with you." Soraya looked at him, her expression softening for a moment before returning to its usual calm. "You don't know what you're getting into. The council has eyes everywhere." "I know," Cade replied. "But I didn't sign up to kill the wrong people. I came here to stop a war." Soraya studied him closely. "Then you'll need more than just a blade." She reached into her cloak and pulled out a small device, an ancient-looking key. It shimmered faintly in the dim light. "What is that?" Cade asked. "It's the key to the hidden archives," she said quietly. "Inside, you'll find the truth. The real truth behind the council, the ruler, and the war they're planning." Cade took the key, feeling its weight. "Where is it?" Soraya glanced at the hallway again. "In the heart of the palace. But we need to be quick." The sound of approaching guards echoed louder now. There was no more time for questions. "Lead the way," Cade said, tightening his grip on his weapon. Soraya nodded, and together they slipped into the shadows, disappearing into the night. The palace corridors were quiet as Cade and Soraya moved through the shadows. The only sound was the soft tapping of their footsteps on the smooth stone floors. The air was cool and still, but there was tension in the way Soraya moved. She led the way, her eyes constantly scanning for any sign of danger. Cade followed close behind, his mind racing with the new information he had just learned. The truth behind the throne. The ruler wasn't the true power. The real control lay with a hidden council, manipulating the galaxy from the shadows. Cade couldn't help but wonder how far the council's influence stretched. And what did they want from Earth? Soraya stopped suddenly in front of a door, a large metallic panel covered in strange symbols. She didn't need to say anything. Cade knew this was it, the heart of the palace, the place where the truth was hidden. "This is it," Soraya said softly, turning to face him. "The archives are inside, but we must be careful. The council will stop at nothing to keep these secrets." Cade nodded, feeling the weight of his decision pressing down on him. They were about to uncover something dangerous. He had come here on a mission to eliminate a leader, but now he wasn't sure who the true enemy was. Soraya reached out, placing her hand on the door's surface. The symbols on the panel glowed briefly before the door slid open, revealing a darkened room inside. The space was enormous, filled with rows upon rows of data crystals, ancient books, and strange artifacts. This was where the council's secrets had been hidden for centuries. Cade stepped inside, his eyes scanning the room. The atmosphere felt heavy, as if the very walls were alive with the weight of history. He could sense the power here, the power that the council had tried so hard to keep hidden. "Where do we start?" Cade asked, his voice low. Soraya moved forward, walking between the rows of data crystals. "There are records here, information about the council's plans, about the ruler's true role, and about the war they're preparing." She paused, turning to face him. "This room holds the answers to everything." Cade followed her, his footsteps silent. He wasn't sure what he was hoping to find. Evidence of the council's corruption. Or perhaps something worse, something even more dangerous than they had imagined. As they reached the far end of the room, Soraya stopped in front of a pedestal. On it was a small crystal, glowing faintly in the dim light. She reached out and took it, turning it over in her hands before placing it carefully into a console. The room hummed to life. The walls seemed to shift, revealing holographic displays of maps, star systems, and documents. Cade watched in awe as images of the galaxy filled the air. He saw star systems he had never heard of, strange worlds, and ancient ruins. "This is it," Soraya whispered. The Council's true plans. The first hologram flickered to life, showing the galactic core, where the ruler's empire stretched across countless planets. But as the image zoomed out, Cade saw something that made his stomach drop. A hidden fleet of ships, scattered across the galaxy, built in secret. The fleet wasn't meant to defend the Empire. It was meant to invade. Cade's heart raced. What are they planning to do with this fleet? Soraya's expression darkened. The Council doesn't just want control of the galaxy. They want complete domination. And they've been planning it for centuries. The ruler was never more than a puppet, a figurehead, to distract from their true goal. The hologram shifted again, showing a series of documents, old, faded papers, detailing the creation of the fleet and its mission. Cade leaned closer, his eyes scanning the text. What he read sent a chill down his spine. Earth will be the first target. Cade felt his breath catch in his throat. Earth, the planet he had been sent to protect. Earth, the people he had sworn to defend. The Council was planning an invasion, and Earth was their first stop. But why Earth? Cade asked, his voice shaking. Why would they start there? Soraya's eyes met his. Because Earth is the key. The Council believes that by conquering Earth, they can unlock the power to control the entire galaxy. There is something on your planet, something ancient, that they need. Something that will allow them to become unstoppable. Cade felt a wave of anger wash over him. He had come here to stop a war, to kill the ruler, but now he realized that the real war was much larger than he had ever imagined. The Council wasn't just planning to invade Earth, they were hunting it. Then we need to stop them, Cade said, his voice fierce. We need to warn Earth. We need to fight back. Soraya nodded, but there was sadness in her eyes. It's not that simple. The Council has already set their plans in motion. They won't stop until they've taken everything. Cade clenched his fists. But as the weight of their situation settled in, he felt a new resolve rising within him. He wasn't just going to watch this happen. He wasn't going to let the Council destroy Earth, or anyone else. We don't have much time, Cade said. We need to take this information and make sure it gets to Earth. We need to expose the Council before it's too late. Soraya hesitated for a moment, but then she nodded. Agreed. But we have to be careful. The Council has spies everywhere, and they'll stop at nothing to protect their secrets. Cade looked around the archives, the weight of their mission pressing down on him. Hay had uncovered the truth, but now the real fight was just beginning. And it was a fight that would determine the fate of Earth and the galaxy. Cade and Soraya stood in the heart of the ancient archives, the weight of their discovery pressing down on them. The room around them was filled with the ghosts of secrets long buried. The holographic displays flickered softly, showing maps of the galaxy, the hidden fleet, and the Council's dark plans. It was clear now. The Council's reach extended far beyond anything Cade had imagined. Earth wasn't just a target. It was the first step in their larger plan for domination. But even with all the information they had uncovered, Cade knew that the fight was far from over. The Council's influence was everywhere, and getting the truth to Earth would be no easy task. Their enemies weren't just powerful, they were everywhere, hidden in plain sight. Soraya turned to Cade, her face hardening with determination. We need to leave this place. The Council will know we've been here soon enough. Cade nodded. How do we get out of here without being caught? Soraya's eyes flicked to the far corner of the room, where a small door led to a hidden passage. This way, she said, moving toward it. Cade followed her, his mind still racing. He couldn't believe how close Earth was to destruction. But now, with the truth in their hands, they had a chance. They had to warn Earth. They had to expose the Council. As they moved through the narrow passageway, Soraya spoke again. There are others who know what the Council is planning. There are still a few of us who are trying to stop them. Cade glanced at her. Others? Soraya nodded. We're not alone in this fight, but the Council has done everything they can to silence us. They've infiltrated every major faction in the galaxy. Even within my own people, there are spies. Cade's heart sank. How many can we trust? Very few, Soraya said, her voice steady, but with a hint of sadness. The Council has eyes everywhere, but there are some we can rely on. We'll need their help if we're going to stop them. Cade felt a surge of hope, but it was tempered by the harsh reality of the situation. The Council wasn't just a political force. They were a network, a hidden empire that spanned the galaxy, and they had already set their plan in motion. Time was running out. They reached the end of the passage, where a small ship waited in the shadows. Soraya led Cade inside, and they quickly began preparing for takeoff. The ship was sleek and silent, designed for speed and stealth. It was the perfect vessel for their mission. Cade sat down at the controls, his hand steady despite the tension in his chest. Soraya worked beside him, inputting coordinates for their next destination. They needed to get off the palace grounds before the Council's soldiers arrived. But they also needed to figure out how to get the information to Earth. We need to make contact with the Resistance, Soraya said, her eyes focused on the data screen in front of her. They're the only ones who can help us spread the truth. Cade looked out of the window at the sprawling palace below. The stars beyond were bright, but the darkness of the Council's plan loomed over everything. How do we find them? Soraya's expression was grim. They'll find us. The Resistance has been monitoring the Council's activities for years. They know we're coming. Just as she spoke, the ship's sensors flared to life. A warning flashed across the screen. Incoming enemy ships. Damn it, Cade muttered, his fingers flying over the controls. They found us. Soraya stood up, her eyes narrowing. We need to move fast. The Council won't stop until they've silenced us. Cade didn't need to be told twice. He pushed the ship's engines to their maximum, and the vessel shot into the sky, leaving the palace and the danger behind. But the pursuit was already close behind them. Enemy ships had locked onto their coordinates, and their weapons systems were primed. They're gaining on us, Cade said, his voice tense. I know, Soraya replied, gripping the seat beside her. But we can lose them. This ship is faster than theirs. Cade took a deep breath and made a sharp turn, diving into the asteroid field that surrounded the planet. The enemy ships followed, but they were less maneuverable, unable to follow Cade's tight turns through the field. We're going to need a distraction, Soraya said, her voice calm despite the chaos. I got one, Cade said with a smirk. Hold on. He pushed the ship into a dive, heading toward a dense cluster of asteroids. As the eye neared the rocks, Cade activated the ship's cloaking device, making them invisible to the enemy ships. The ship flew silently through the field, weaving between asteroids as the enemy ships passed overhead, unable to detect them. Soraya let out a breath. Nice work. Cade didn't say anything, his focus still on the ship's controls. He had to stay sharp. This wasn't over yet. After a few tense moments, Cade pulled the ship into a wide loop and headed toward the outer edge of the system. The enemy ships were still in pursuit, but they were far behind now. He set the coordinates for a remote location where they could lay low and make their next move. We're almost there, Cade said, glancing at Soraya. She nodded, her eyes dark with determination. Once we reach the Resistance, we'll have the support we need. But this is just the beginning. The Council has no idea what they've started. Cade looked out at the stars, a new sense of purpose filling him. The mission had changed. It wasn't just about stopping a war anymore. It was about fighting for the future of the galaxy. And he wasn't going to let the Council win. The ship cut through the void of space, heading for an unknown destination. Cade sat at the controls, his eyes scanning the stars ahead, his mind still racing. The mission had changed so much in the last few hours. He had come to the palace expecting to kill a ruler, but now he was part of something much larger, a resistance fighting against a hidden council that had been pulling the strings of the galaxy for centuries. Soraya stood beside him, her eyes focused on the stars, her expression calm but distant. Cade had noticed how much she had changed since they first met. The fierce warrior was still there, but now there was something else, an undeniable sadness mixed with determination. He wanted to ask her about it, but he knew now wasn't the time. They had too much to do, and they needed to reach the resistance before the council caught up with them. Their enemies were relentless, and the truth they carried was dangerous. If they were caught with this information, it would be the end, not just for them, but for the entire galaxy. "We're almost there," Soraya said, breaking the silence. Her voice was steady, but there was an edge to it now, a quiet urgency. Cade nodded without taking his eyes off the screen. "How far is it?" "Just a few more hours," she replied, glancing at the coordinates. "I've made contact with the resistance. They're waiting for us." Cade felt a wave of relief wash over him. The resistance. The people who had been fighting against the council's hidden rule for years. They were their best hope, the only chance to expose the truth and stop the council's plans for domination. "I hope they're ready for what we've got," Cade said, his voice low. "They are," Soraya said firmly. "They've been preparing for this moment. They've known about the council for a long time. They just didn't have the proof until now." Cade thought about that for a moment. The resistance had been fighting in the dark, without knowing the full scope of the council's power. Now they had the truth. But would it be enough? Could they actually stop the council? Cade pushed the doubts aside. He had come this far, and there was no turning back now. They had a mission to complete. As the hours passed, the tension in the ship grew. They were getting closer to their destination, and every minute brought them closer to the unknown. Cade knew the resistance would be waiting, but what would happen when they arrived? Would they be able to trust the resistance? Could they work together to fight the council, or would their enemies be too powerful? Soraya stood up, walking over to the small window that looked out into space. She stared at the stars for a long moment before speaking again. "There's more you should know," she said, her voice quiet. Cade turned to face her, his curiosity piqued. "More?" She nodded. "The council isn't just a political force. They've been manipulating everything. The wars, the alliances, even the fate of entire civilizations. They have control over resources, trade, and technology. And they've been hiding it all behind the guise of peace and order." Cade's jaw tightened. "So they've been pulling the strings all along." "Yes," Soraya said, her eyes darkening. "And they've always been one step ahead. That's why we have to stop them now. If we don't, they will continue to control everything. They will rewrite history." The weight of her words settled over Cade, and for the first time, he understood the gravity of their mission. They weren't just fighting for Earth anymore. They were fighting into a tight braid. She wore simple clothing, practical and worn from years of use, but there was a quiet strength in her posture. Her eyes locked onto Soraya as she approached, and for a moment, the two women stood silently, sizing each other up. Cade hung back, allowing the two to speak. He could feel the tension in the air, but it was different from the hostile atmosphere he had encountered in the palace. This was real tension. Tension born from uncertainty and the weight of the unknown. The resistance knew what was at stake, and they were fighting to survive. Finally, the woman spoke. "Soraya," she said, her voice calm but firm. "You bring a human with you." Soraya nodded. "He's with me. We have the information." The woman's gaze shifted to Cade, and for a moment, he felt as though she was trying to read him. "And what exactly do you expect us to do with this information?" she asked. "We expose the truth," Soraya replied. "We expose the council for what they are, and we stop them before they can carry out their plans." The woman studied them for a moment longer, then nodded slowly. "I believe you," she said, "but the truth is dangerous. It's not just the council we're fighting. It's the fear they've instilled in everyone. The galaxy is divided, and we can't afford to alienate anyone." Cade stepped forward. "We don't have time to worry about alienating people. The Council's plans for Earth are already in motion. If we don't act, they'll strike before we can warn anyone." The woman's eyes narrowed as she considered his words. "And what exactly do you propose we do?" "We gather our allies," Cade said. "We expose the truth to the galaxy. We show them the Council's plans, and we unite against them. The only way to stop them is to bring everyone together. We can't fight this alone." Soraya glanced at Cade, her eyes filled with quiet pride. He was right. The truth they carried was their greatest weapon, but it was also the most dangerous. They couldn't afford to hide it anymore. If they were going to defeat the Council, they needed allies. They needed everyone. The woman looked at Cade for a long moment, then turned to Soraya. "You trust him?" Soraya nodded. "I do." The woman studied them both, then stepped aside. "Then let's get to work." The resistance leader led them to a hidden camp, a small base tucked away deep in the planet's wilderness. The camp was simple but functional. There were weapons, supplies, and maps scattered across the central table. The resistance was ready for battle. They had been waiting for this moment for years. As they settled in and began to plan their next steps, Cade couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change. The truth was out, and now they had to make sure it was heard. The Council's time was running out, and with the resistance at their side, Cade felt more certain than ever that they could win. They were no longer just a few people fighting against the tide. They were a force, and together, they would bring down the Council.